Hi, I'm Nancy Linden, and this is my loft where I live. I have a lot of my work here, although I make it. My studio is upstairs in the same building. We've lived here for 6 or 7 years now, I guess, along with 4 cats. My husband and I and 4 cats, whom you may see at some point or other. I've always painted all my life, but not seriously until, gosh, 15 years ago now, maybe 20, possibly. Yeah, I guess more like 20. I started deciding that I really need to focus on something if I'm going to ever achieve anything. Well, I've always sort of split my time alternating between painting and acting and writing. I've been painting pretty seriously in Houston and now in Baltimore for the last 18 years, I guess. This is some of my work that you see around the loft. These farmers this is from a Dorothea Lange photograph of 6 tenant farmers who've been evicted off their land in Hardeman County, Texas. A lot of my work is based on Farm Security Administration photographs from the 30s and 40s, and tends to be kind of collagey and installation-y. Other work I make from from models is more colorful and ordinary oil paintings, but the stuff that I do from black and white photographs gets kind of collagey and like that. You'll see a few things like that around here. The Dorothea Lange photograph is something that I've been intrigued with for some years, just the rhythm of the 6 figures standing there in front of the camera. In her photograph, they're standing against like a barn wall, I think. In my case, I freed them up and put them just a thin horizon line behind them, imagining that they're standing outside. But they're on a lot of different media, a lot of different surfaces, and done with a lot of different media. Really just, and I can't really say why. It seemed like something was more appropriate for one figure or something else for another figure. And so I ended up, there's some that are on plaster, there's some on wood, some on canvas, some on tar paper, which is kind of a fun thing to use because it interacts with you. You make a mark on the tar paper, you go away overnight and come back and the tar paper has changed your mark. So the figure on the end you'll see in a minute, was originally with oil bar, off-white oil bar, very pale oil bars, and it's gotten very dark gray for the most part. So, and it's all one piece, even though they're on several different supports, and they're actually separated, so they have to be hung together. There's space between them, which when I first installed them, which was at Resurgam, this great old gallery in South Baltimore that no longer exists, I had the horizon line continuing between them and continuing on the rest of the way around the room, and there was nothing else in the room but them and this horizon. So that's them.
That's a cool concept. Now, can we talk about this fellow over here?
The guy in the red stocking cap, I call it Railroad Night because I was just reading Jack Kerouac at the time. I feel like he's sitting in a railroad. He is actually from a model. There is a fellow that used to pose for me sometimes that painting is based on. But it just kind of evolved. Whether I'm using a model or working from a photograph or whatever I'm working on sort of evolves and changes as I'm working on it until it's like it's as if I'm trying to see into their lives, and I'm kind of digging through the canvas to get to something else. I'm digging through their image, so it doesn't really matter. They don't usually end up looking like the person, although I'm capable of doing that. But I'm kind of using them to get to some life I'm interested in or something. So that was a fellow that just kind of evolved into this old guy sitting in the railroad yard.
And how about the one back there that I liked? I kept saying it looked like Mom's Maybelline.
Oh, the laughing one. The laughing portrait is, well, not portrait, the laughing painting is based on 2 or 3 different Farm Security Administration photographs that I kind of put together. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. I had submitted to the Washington Convention Center when they were looking for large pieces to put up in their new atrium that they were building. And they didn't actually say these must be pieces that we can buy, but they just said, let us see your work. So I sent a bunch of work to them and heard back, and they wanted this one piece. And I said, well, it's actually sold. And they said, well, can you get it? And I talked to the guy who bought it, and no, he didn't want to sell it. So I said to them, well, it just happens that I'm working on another piece that's much like that. And went home and started it. And I was going along frustrated. I spent all my time trying to think what they would like, what would please them, why did they like that piece, and what would they like in this piece. And it was awful. I couldn't get going with it. So I finally took a photograph of what I'd done so far, sent it to them, said, is this what you want? And they said no. So fine. So I just finished it the way I wanted it, ended up with that piece, and I love it.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
Okay, now I saw some that were on paper, weren't they? On like brown paper?
There's some boys behind you. There's on the other wall. There's some boys, 3 boys sitting drawn in pastel and charcoal on brown paper. That was really the first thing I did when I started getting serious about art. A friend in Galveston, Texas, loaned me his studio, a corner of his studio, and I worked on that piece. Again, it was from a Farm Security Administration photograph, that by Ben Shawn. And I kind of worked on them one at a time on this easel, not easel, it was a drawing board, drawing table. And people would come by and say, oh, is that a study for something you're making? And I said, no, this is a piece I'm making. And it ended up that piece. I've done everything wrong. It's on brown paper. I attached the brown paper together with rubber cement. All of these things are supposed to put a severe lifetime limitation on your work. But that was 20 years ago-ish, and they still seem to be fine, so I'm not too worried about them.
Okay, now what is the favorite medium you like to work in?
Well, I work with oil or charcoal. I've recently done some pieces on charcoal on frosted mylar, which is a really interesting thing to work on. It's plastic, but it's got a tooth, so the charcoal sticks to it, but you just touch it and the charcoal falls off right away, so you have to not touch it until you want to. But if you want to change it, you just kind of rub your hand over it and it's all gone. So you can just keep reworking it, reworking it, reworking it, reworking it. Eventually it develops a little bit of a shadow where you've been working, so it doesn't completely come off the next time. But you just keep playing with that and working, and eventually you get what you want and you spray it, just spray the hell out of it, and then it stays. So that's a lot of fun. But squishy things, I like charcoal, fat, thick, squishy charcoal and oil paint and like that. I also do a lot of collage-y things and a lot of installation stuff, not all of which is figurative. Nearly all of my work is figurative, but I do installation sort of things that are not figurative, although they do, in a sense, involve the figure because then people walk through them.
So explain installation to the audience.
Well, it's just anything. It's just normally like an environment. It's something that you're building rather than you're painting something. It's something that's actually there, and generally it's something you can move through like an environment, like a room that's got window. One thing I did was windows hung throughout the room and papered over, and this space consisting of that.
So, who are some of your favorite female artists?
Female artists.
Well, you can say artists in general and then specify.
My heroes tend to be the abstract expressionists, despite the fact that that's not how I paint. But like de Kooning and Klein, and they're kind of two of my main ones. Diebenkorn I love. I do paint a little more like Diebenkorn, but my real idols are de Kooning and Klein and like that, which I paint nothing like. I mean, I would like to paint like them. I guess I have a more figurative way of working, but I want to do it. I work pretty figuratively, but my ethic is more abstraction, is more like an expressionistic abstraction. I would like to think that that's how my work comes out. Well, I pretty much focused entirely on painting, and then a few years ago, I had occasion to do a monologue, and I thought, oh, this is fun, I remember doing this, and started taking acting classes and auditioning for things, and after a year or so, I started getting quite a few roles in community theater around Baltimore, and a couple of little movie things, and I've been an extra on Veep, which is a lot of fun, not that you notice that it's acting, but it's a lot of fun, great people to work with. But so now I've come to focus a little more on that than on painting the last year or two. Actually, just now we've been going off sailing. We're about to go off to England and sail for the coming year around Europe and back to the Caribbean and back home next spring. So I really did not do much acting. I was not in a play all year, which hurts because we were gone until late fall, leaving again in early spring, and the time frame just didn't work out to do anything. So hopefully when I get back, I'll start working again in that regard.
And so you also like to see,
Yeah.
sailing? Okay, so talk a little bit about
Yeah.
sailing.
Well, I'm second mate on a square rig ship out of Philadelphia. I'm going off next week to sail for 10 days with them. Then when I get back, my husband and I will both be leaving for England to get back on our boat, which we left over there at the end of last summer. He single-handed to Ireland from the Baltimore to Baltimore 65 and Not Dead Yet tour last summer. And I met him over there, and we sailed along Ireland and England. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be off back to England and get back on the boat and sail it until we get home. It's a long process around southern Europe and through the Caribbean and home again probably next spring. That's kind of what's next. Well, it was nice talking with you. You can see my artwork if you want to on bakerartistawards.com and then look up my name. It's not my own website. It's a thing that artists in Baltimore can show their work on. It's a wonderful, wonderful website. I think there's a lot of artists on it, but just look up Nancy Linden on it and you can see my work. And I'd just like to thank you now and say top of the morning to you.